The Honda Civic just won our Car of the Year award, but did you know that's not the first time a compact car has been given that prestigious honor?
That's right, Sammy. In 2014, the Mazda3 was our Car of the Year, so we've brought back the former champion to see if it can still hold its own against the newer Honda Civic that's been getting rave reviews.
As soon as I get into the Mazda3, I remember why it won our Car of the Year award a few years ago. It's so much fun to drive, it looks great inside and out, and it has a ton of great technology. But for me, it really starts with the interior of this car. I love the contrasting cream and black leather interior, and there's a ton of small details like this red stitching on the steering wheel and handbrake.
You're right, I do really love the interior. I love the tactile feel of the switchgear. It feels really nice to use. Although I do think this plastic carbon fiber trim is a little bit tacky and looks a little bit out of place. But the Mazda really isn't about that, it's about driving, right?
Absolutely. This car is so much fun to drive, and that's really rare in this class. I mean, Mazda really made the steering excellent, and I just really enjoy driving this car down the road. But we've got the 2.5-liter four-cylinder engine that makes 184 horsepower, and I was expecting a lot out of this engine, and it just didn't deliver. It's a little loud, it's rough around the edges, and paired to the 6-speed automatic transmission, I really wasn't that impressed. It holds onto gears a little too long, but at least this car has a sport mode and paddle shifters so that you can choose your gear, and that's something that the Civic just doesn't offer at all.
So there aren't a lot of huge downsides to the Mazda3, except we did discover that it consumes more fuel than the Honda Civic. In mixed driving, we averaged around 28.7 mpg, while the Honda got 36.2 mpg, which is a huge difference. The Mazda is also not as roomy as the Civic, the trunk is smaller, and it just doesn't have as much technology, right?
Well, I mean, it does have blind spot monitoring and a heads-up display, both things that the Civic doesn't offer. But then again, both cars do have lane keep assist and front collision warning. And all of that comes in at under $26,000, which I think is a pretty good deal. But let's jump into the Honda Civic and see how it compares.
One of the first things you notice when you start driving the Civic is how much more smooth and refined it is over the Mazda3. I mean, it just feels a lot more upscale, and it has a ton more technology. You know, it's got stuff like lane keep assist, adaptive cruise control, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and that awesome lane watch camera.
That's all so useful. I mean, I really love the digital gauge cluster and Android Auto, but what really stands out to me is just how much more roomier the Civic is. I mean, it's got a ton more rear legroom, and the trunk is just massive compared to the Mazda.
This definitely is one of the most athletic Civics we've seen in a long time, but it still doesn't feel as sporty as the Mazda3 does, right? So the Civic has really nice steering, it's predictable, and it has a good on-center feel and a really nice weight to it, but it just can't match up to the Mazda.
No, I don't think so. But what about that engine?
It's got a really good turbo, which means it does have a lot more low-end torque and a lot more passing power.
And even with that turbo, this thing has a fuel-sipping CVT transmission, and usually those things are a bit loud and dull, but I didn't really find that at all in the Civic, and I think that's a huge bonus.
I forget that this is a CVT entirely. It doesn't even feel like one.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with you. The package here features the more refined ride of these two cars, and the way it handles potholes and bumps in the road is just fantastic. It's above average for the whole class. After driving these two cars, I'm pretty much convinced that the Civic is the go-to for me. I mean, it really does feel fantastic on the road, and it feels like a complete package. What do you think?
I do think it's a class above the Mazda3, which is saying a lot though, because the Mazda3 is still top-notch in my books.
Both of these are great compact cars, and they bring a lot to the table. I'm really surprised with the Mazda3 for being so competitive with a brand new car after all these years.
It's very true, Sammy, but if driving is what is more important to you, you'll be a lot happier with the Mazda3's sportier feel. But the Civic is a better all-around car and has a lot of value for someone shopping in this segment. It is a little bit more expensive than the Mazda3, but its better fuel economy, more refined ride, and more features really helps justify that higher price.